Good afternoon. My name is Ania Urbańska and I am the CEO of the Polish Office of Standard Chartered Bank. I'm here having two hats right now. First, I have a pleasure and honor to be the physical host of this event in our lovely office, in our brand new building that is prepared for very functional and multitasking type of work that we have right now, which is a little bit from home, a little bit from office, just to adjust to the current needs. But also I have a pleasure and honor, and thank you very much for inviting me to the panelist forum here to discuss about very, very important topic of diversity that we have right now. I will leave a floor to the organizers of this event, which is British Polish Chamber of Commerce, that will talk about details and next steps. But on behalf of Standard Chartered, thank you very much for inviting, and I wish us very fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Elżbieta Pełka, and I'm the board member of the British Polish Chamber of Commerce. And I'm very happy to welcome everybody here, all the panelists and all the guests, the leaders, and also everybody online who is joining us. I think it's an extremely important event for the British Chamber and the board member of the British Chamber, because it is the first, and we hope, annual event that is going to be focused on the women's leadership in Poland, and we hope one day maybe also with a broader perspective. What I would like to do is basically to give some kind of the introduction to the panel discussion and to great people that are taking part in it, not only women, but as you can see, we also have got a male guest, which is, I think what is important is to have really the opinion and the view of male and female leaders. When I was preparing for the introduction, I think that I basically would like to focus on a couple of issues, and then I will give away the voice to Olga. When we talk about leaders, we need to remember that leaders are the elite of the country, each country. And I think that the high quality of leaders, it basically gives the guarantee of the creativity, also development, and the strength of the country, and also the society and our companies. If we haven't got leaders, then we can forget, because it will never happen what we want to achieve, and it's basically more difficult. When I was thinking about the role model in terms of the leadership, I thought about Eleanor Roosevelt. Everybody knows her. And why? Because she was an extremely strong person. And she used to say, every day there is a new strength and new thoughts. And especially in the situation when we meet in the time of the pandemic, I think the strength is extremely important in leadership and also in the life of everybody. She was a strong woman. She fought for human rights, representing the USA and the United Nations. She went against the views and tendencies of her era. It's important. Why? Because that is why we remember her, but also I think that the aim of our meeting is basically generate new thinking. I think that what is important is that everybody leaves today's meeting with a thought, inspiration. What we are looking for is basically the inspiration. And I also talk from the perspective of the entrepreneur, because I run two companies. When I was setting up the companies, the first one 20 years ago, and the second one 13 years ago, I wasn't a leader. I think that it was the last thing I was thinking about. Why? Because I had to generate projects and win projects. And then after 15, 20 years, I can say, yes, I'm a leader, but it did take some time. So what I would like basically to also highlight is that it is important to look at the leadership from different perspectives, from the perspective of the corporation and also from the perspective of small businesses, because it does differ. I think that the qualities of leader in those two entities, they are a little bit different. And I think that, if the panelists could also tackle this, it would be, I think it would be very interesting. So it's all from my side. Thank you very much. And I give the voice to Olga.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Elżbieta, and what a great pleasure it is to be with you. My name is Olga Grygiel-Siddons. I'm a business advisor and mentor. For many years, I was closely associated with PwC, where I was the CEO of Central and Eastern Europe region, a region comprising over 30 countries. And also I sat on both the global and EMEA leadership teams. And I suppose that experience makes me qualify for the panel. Before I introduce my guests, I'd like to just respond and continue the thought that Elżbieta started with on leadership. And I think now the quality of leaders, which Elżbieta talked about, is more important than ever. And I would also put forward a hypothesis for us to discuss that actually what we have currently in terms of leadership, what we have in the average boardroom of an average business is not up to the task of leadership. It does not address the challenges of the current world. And why do I say that? Because the challenges are so big, so complex, and they're coming at us so quickly. The change is phenomenal. I think we've all observed how we all changed, how quickly we all adapted to the changes that COVID forced us to make, how quickly we moved from the physical offices into remote working. Now we're observing that kind of change, that sort of speed and magnitude of change on daily basis. So let me give you some examples of the types of challenges that leaders are or should be focusing on right now. And I start with the environment. It's a big, juicy challenge. And I'm sure many of you have seen David Attenborough's film, Alive on the Planet. And if you haven't, I strongly recommend you do. That film shows how quickly our planet is changing, the impact, and I have to say the negative impact that we've had on the planet over a lifetime of David Attenborough, 80 odd years, how much things have changed. Now, it is now down to us to actually stop those changes that are impacting our planet negatively. And if you look at the context in which we operate, if you looked at how businesses are set up, we're not only addicted to fossil fuels, but we also fixated in businesses on growth, on coming up with new products, more products, on encouraging consumerism. Now, we've got the ESG agenda, which every business is signing up to. But at the same time, we know that as business leaders, on one hand, we've got our business targets, which inevitably include growth and profitability. And on the other hand, we've got ESG. Now, it is really important that we have leaders who can actually make the two things work together, that the ESG agenda does not become something we just talk about. We need leaders who have courage to actually do the right things rather than do the speedy things or go for the quick wins. So we need much more courageous leaders than maybe what we've seen in the past. The second area I'll touch on is polarization of our communities, of our countries, of our societies. And actually, we may think that that's not affecting business yet because that polarization is out there in the political world or in our private world. But actually, we're seeing more and more how these issues that are often referred to as worldview issues, we have a great word in Polish, światopogląd. Those issues are affecting us in business day in and day out. I mean, current attitude towards vaccination is a great example of how that polarized world is entering our places of work. And therefore, it is really important that we have leaders who can bridge those different points of views, who can unite people, who can bring people together and help them see the bigger purpose and help the whole organization work towards that one goal. Another big challenge, technology. We all experiencing great benefits of technology, doing this panel remotely. However, as we know, there are some unintended negative consequences. The bad algorithms that are so prominent in our social media and that are having huge impact on everything and everybody, especially our young generation. Our current regulation is not keeping up with what's happening in technology. Therefore, we need leaders who have a really strong moral backbone, who can self-regulate the businesses, who can help work out what is right and what is wrong. They don't just go for the easy trick and sort of hide behind, this is legal, therefore we can do it. And maybe the final kind of global challenge that I'll mention is how the world has become both local and global. If we look at it from that perspective, a small startup somewhere in the middle of Poland, let's say in the town of Pszczyna, where I come from, everything else being equal, has exactly the same chance of going global as a business as a startup from the West Coast of America. Now, that technology has given us a great tool and has made the world a very small place. Yet our politicians will have us believe that people who are confined within borders are different, that we need to focus and strengthen those borders. And that goes directly against what we're seeing in business, what we're experiencing on day-to-day basis. Therefore, again, if I look at business leaders, we need people who can combine both the local, who can do the right thing for the local team, but also a good global corporate citizen. So it's one and the other. They don't make those choices between one or the other. They can work it out how to do both. And that's incredibly tricky. Now, turning now to closer to home, to Poland, we have the ambition of becoming an economy that's based not on imitation, but on innovation. That's been the mantra. We want to be creative, and we are very creative people. I think those who come to Poland, who set up their businesses here, do tell us that. But in order to move our economy from being incredibly efficient and being great value for money, which is where we've been, into that creative and innovative end of the spectrum, we need to change, or we need to develop a number of things. Diversity of thought, of ideas, therefore of people sitting around the table is one of them, and I'm sure during this panel we'll talk about that at some length. But diversity alone, just having the right people in the organization or even at the boardroom table, is not enough, because we need to have a way of getting all those diverse views into bear and turning them into value. we need to create an environment where those people with diverse backgrounds and experience can actually collaborate, they can work together, they hear each other, and they actually produce something that is more, where the sum of parts is bigger than the arithmetical number. That's what we're trying to do. So we need diversity, but we also need collaboration, and we need a culture of trust and safety for people to feel safe, to express their views if they're different from the views of others, and for people to try different ideas and inevitably occasionally fail. It is really important that leaders create that culture and that environment of safety. So I'll stop here, but that's just a picture and some specific examples where I think we do need to change something, because as we know, if you keep on doing the same thing over and over again, you cannot expect results that are different. And we do want to see some changes. We do want to see some resolution to some of these big global and our local Polish challenges. So with that, I will now turn to our panelists. I will first of all introduce our guests here. So on my left, Ania Urbańska, who is our host and the CEO of Standard Chartered Business Services Group here in Poland. We have Joanna Romańczuk, who is the Managing Director for TMF Poland and Ukraine. And we have Magdalena Blechowska, who is the Talent Director for Region Europe for UPS.
Lovely being here.
And on my right, Mark Burridge, who's the Managing Director of Hayes here in Poland, and Barbara Sissons, who is the Chief Financial Officer at Kinarps Polska, and also a member of the board of the Foundation of Business Leaders. Fantastic. So now a question for all of you. So how do you see, because we're here to discuss specifically female leadership and how female leadership is contributing, can contribute towards solving some of these big challenges, some of those I've mentioned, I'm sure there's others that you will want to mention. How are you seeing that contribution right now? Would you like to see less? Would you like to see more? In what areas? And what are kind of your thoughts and ideas of how we can create an environment where that female leadership comes more to bear? So Ania, maybe I'll ask you to go first.
Thank you. So looking at our society, I think we have 50-50 ratio of men and female. So statistically, and I'm not great at maths, but it would make sense that overall ratio of everywhere is equal, yes, or at least close. So from logical point of view, there is no reason why in leadership there should be less or more women than anywhere else. As I'm quite long in a business, I think I have 25 years of experience, I see that ratio increasing in Poland, and I'm very happy about it. But still, my view is that this ratio should be higher. And why? Mainly because of the fact that female and male point of view can be the same, can be different, but it's good to have the different perspective of everything. And there are some definitely lectures and articles where we can say where women are stronger, and what is being stated is that they are more focused on collaboration, they are more focused on networking, on the softer side. I don't know if this is true, because I have seen women leaders who are not so, and I have seen male leaders that where it is a case, but definitely having this diversity is important for me. But I would like to get to the point, and I hope within my career, I will be at this. We are going to be at the such a status that we will not discuss female male, but we will talk only about competencies, because that will be such an obvious state that we will not focus on male, female. So it's my dream not to attend that kind of discussion that in the future, but really focus on skills, on expertise, and on the top talents that are equally men and female, because that is how it should be from a statistical perspective.
And Anya, are you seeing the speed of change? Because you've noted that over the last 20 years, you've absorbed the stats are going in the right way. So that sort of globally, they're about 20%. My impression is that the stats have got a little bit stuck recently. What are you seeing?
So what I think is to go to the basics, the leaders, that female leaders that we are right now, those are the ladies who has started their career 10, 15, 20 years ago, where we were in a hunger of becoming the leaders. So I remember my early career, and I really wanted to prove, and I wanted to show that women can be leaders and they can be equally good leaders. So it was driving me. What we have to bear in mind is that we need to raise the next generation of leaders. And I think it will be easier because there are more of us, so we can coach those ladies who want to become leaders to do so. But what is needed is the cultural change, the change of reflection and expectations towards women, not to have traditional roles, but also to be able to develop in the area where they want, and just to help them. It's initial helping one and another, showing example, encouraging, talking, mentoring, all the things that we do right now in smaller scale. I think it will work, but this push is needed from our side.
Super, thank you. Joanna, can we ask for your thoughts on the same topic? What are your observations?
So I share the dream. I would love to live in a society where the gender doesn't really matter for your career development, but I think we're far away from that point yet. And I think we got stuck. There is a number of women in leadership positions, and the ratio is not changing. And that's very interesting why it is not changing, right? Because on the paper, we should be well positioned to develop this next generation of leaders or female leaders. And it's either the matter of priorities, either the matter of the lack of role models that young professionals can follow, or it's the perception of the role of a leader itself. And here is our responsibility of changing that perspective and that perception, because leaders are often associated as someone who's harsh, who's making tough decisions, who's focused on the results, perhaps ignorant of the challenges that you mentioned earlier, environmental and cultural. But that's not the case. The tough decisioning is an element of the role, but there is also a great possibility to empower younger people, to spot and develop talent, to coach them and mentor, as I was saying. So I think basically the fact that we got stuck means that we're not doing our job well enough, identifying the talents and bringing diversity to our workplace, and also encouraging the younger generations. So it's good that we talk about it. I always say evolution, not a revolution, but perhaps in this case, with the challenges ahead of us, it's a call for a revolution.
Okay, well, I'll come back to that call for revolution shortly, but maybe if I can turn to Mark. Thank you for joining our panel and bringing the male perspective, as well as somebody who comes from outside of Poland. What are you observing, Mark? Are things changing? Are things going in the right direction?
Well, firstly, I think, I think statistically, therefore, from a leadership perspective, I'm the minority representing the majority today. So it's great to be here. I think there's two aspects. There's recognizing the qualities of female leadership and what that brings and the value that generates, either in a country or an organization. And then there's the quantity of female leadership that is enabled to do that. And globally, I think there are many, many great examples of female leaders, either leading countries or companies. And if I think very personally in Poland right now, in my organization, we have 60% of our senior leaders, our directors, and in fact, our managers are female. And when we think we've just gone through probably the most turbulent, challenging time that any business has experienced. And we've come through that, not only survived, but thrived. And we're now delivering record results. And that's down to our leadership team, which is predominantly female. And I think the qualities that have been discussed already are the qualities, and there's always a risk of massive generalization here, but I think those qualities have certainly come to the fore. That's what's enabled us to do that. And when I look across the world, and I've worked in a number of different countries, I think it's fair to say that organizations that have a similar balance will have experienced a lot of the benefits that we've experienced. When I look at Poland as a country, however, there are not enough of those. And if we look at the statistics and various reports that we've analysed, I think we're still a way behind. So the question is why? And from a male perspective, we, I speak for all of us, have a very important role to play in this. Because it's one thing to create the desire and enable the opportunity, but it's another thing to actually support that idea and translate it into action.
And this is going to probably be a difficult question, but from a male perspective, do you see that male leaders appreciate those qualities that women bring to the boardroom? And do you see that they're seeking out in your role, in your job, do you see them seeking out to bring those different type of perspectives to the way they're running companies, businesses?
Generally speaking, not enough, clearly. Otherwise, there would be more females at the boardroom table. I think there are varying degrees of that happening around the world. But I think that, again, there were two aspects here, three aspects. One is doing the right thing morally and socially and providing the quality of opportunity. Another is recognizing the benefits commercially that this approach will bring, which are very real. And the third is the risk of not doing that. So, purely from a commercial perspective, there's a scarcity of talent. And if you look at it purely commercially, can you afford to limit the available talent to one sex? So I think there are three compelling reasons why people have to actually start to embrace this more than they have so far. When I think globally, I think Poland for sure is in that space, not enough yet.
Super. We'll probe that a little bit more. Magda, what are your thoughts, observation on the topic of female leadership?
So first of all, thank you so much for the invitation here. And I just would like to relate to your opening speech because it was very inspiring and it even added to my purpose of being here. I was just talking to my daughter on Monday and she was asking like, what you gonna talk about there and why are you going there? And she's like 14 years old. So she's still like having a bit of time before she goes into the work market. But I told her like, I'm going there because I care and because it really matters for me as a person to have female representation in business and also to look at it like broader, like to have diversity. And I'm just for justice, for fairness, for freedom, and for bringing humanity to, not only to company, but really to the world. And observing the current narrative, even in Poland, I think we need to raise our voice as female, but also like for just respect for people. And relating to, so this is my like personal purpose. But at the same time, I believe that we as organizations do not only have choice to speak about it, but we have obligation to speak about it because we are very knowledgeable, we are expert, we have leaders, and we are a very important voice in this narrative. And additionally, this is again not for businesses, not only a philanthropic act, because we know that diversity and more female, that's just great for business. And nowadays in the disrupted world we just need innovation, but this is a must. And to have innovation, we need diversity and we need this inclusion and the the style of leadership that is actually including the voices, that is bring the psychological safety. And that's proven that, and I don't want to generalize as well, but it is proven through research that we are just more like naturally, wired to be, to having more social intelligence, to be more creative as females. So I think bringing that in is just a great choice for business.
It's almost inevitable that those aspects are needed for solving some of those challenges. And if we haven't got that full access to the talent, tackling these challenges.
Absolutely. And there's one more like a social, we are experiencing, and then pandemic actually accelerated that, the loneliness issue. It's becoming a social epidemic. We have in UK, I believe, a ministry of loneliness. And this is something that is causing a high impact on people's health and life, depression, anxiety, stress. And that affects of how we are on the work environment. So therefore, what is the medicine for loneliness? It's human connections. And therefore, it's also proven, it was like a research of University of Michigan Ross Business School, that they researched like how it's affecting social, like improving social connections at work. It's actually bringing more productivity, more engagement, less burnout rates, less turnover, and better resilient teams. So this is again great for business, but at the same time great for just general purpose from society perspective.
Super. We'll come back to those issues of how to combine, because one of those challenges is, what do we do with remote working? Do we all go work remotely? How will that impact female leadership, etc.? Barbara, keen to hear your thoughts and views.
Yes, so I agree with everything what you said, so far. So just to add maybe a little bit something from a different perspective, I would like to stress the stereotypes. We haven't discussed that yet. That there is a lot of stereotypes in our society and in business as well about women. What is a women's leadership style, or how we deal with the things. And I think this is something very important to understand, that the stereotypes are not good, either applied to male or to female, because we are all different, and this is good. We said that the diversity is very good. So one thing is that some stereotypes we know they are, and some we even not realizing when we are applying them. So it's good to as well dig, all of us to dig into it. That we just have a first impression, or we say, oh, this is a woman or this is a man, so she or he would behave this way or the other, which is not the case very often. So this is one of my thoughts which I would like to add to the discussion. And the second thing is as well how we can remove the barriers for women to want to be really top leaders, because we are talking here leadership is there are women on the top positions. So this is as well, we should start even from the daughter of 14 years old, because this is how we raise our children. And again, not only daughters, but as well our sons.
Absolutely.
I have a son, and I try to explain to him all this time that his partner has the same right to develop her career as well as he has a right to develop his career. And when the children comes, they have to share the same about the house and so on, because it's very important. And we are mothers, we are mothers. So this is not only to raise girls to want to be the top leaders, but as well to raise them, our sons, or just really, tell the society, because we are in a way as well mentors, and by sharing our experiences, we as well encourage younger managers to become top leaders. So this is really my, let's say, point of view to add to all of your valuable observations and what you brought as well. Very much I agree with and support that.
And
Can,
Barbara,
I just comment on that?
Yeah.
Because that's lovely thought about,
Yeah.
you know, how we're raising our children.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to raise my children in equity, etc. Still, my son comes from kindergarten and says pink is wrong.
Well, I was actually going to ask you, Barbara, a follow-on question, because you know, these stereotypes and sort of traditional expectations of women do play a big part in our attitudes and the attitudes of the society towards female leadership. Are you seeing a change in those kind of social expectations?
You know, in the big cities and in younger generations, yes, I can see, but I don't know really so well other cities or little towns than Warsaw. I'm not an expert in that. But in big cities and, you know, just girls, they now think that there are no barriers, that they can do, I mean, majority of them, yeah, in big cities, that they can achieve the same as boys or men can do. And I always support that, yeah. And this is very important that, you know, we don't say to girls, you can't, I don't know, be IT specialist, yeah. You have to, as you say, play in pink with the dolls, yeah. If she wants to play, I don't know, the car, why not, yeah. Just to leave the, girls the choice, yeah. This is very important. And as well, you know, just very important is that we are ready to go out of our comfort zones as well as a management, because, you know, it's gender diversity, but as well here, yeah. Like we had a meeting before this panel, and we had Mark, we were talking in English, yeah, because there was Mark, and we were out of our comfort zone because we could be better probably speaking in Polish, yeah. So this is as well the diversity, you know, other citizenship, like Mark, yeah, brought as well a lot of different views to the table, yeah, because he worked in Australia and New Zealand and Japan and so on and so on, and of course UK. So it's always good to be open, yeah, to be open for new experiences and don't be afraid.
Thank you. We will be asking Mark about his experiences outside of Poland in a minute. What I plan to do now is to just go around and ask some more questions of the panelists, and then we would like to sort of extend the discussion to our guests here in the room, and would love to invite you for comments and questions. So just giving you a little bit of heads up before the last round. So some kind of a follow-up round now, and the questions are going to get more specific and more difficult, hopefully. So, you know, Anya, we talked a lot about diversity and the importance of culture, and, you know, what kind of cultural challenges are you seeing that we have to work on, and how do we work on those cultural challenges? We sort of alluded to some of them, in order to bring real change in the time of your career, and maybe a little bit, maybe a personal insight as well. You know, you are the chief executive officer of a very prominent bank here in Poland. Share a little bit with us how you got there. And
I very often do that. And talking to your point about we don't know how is it in other parts of Poland, because I sometimes think we live in a bubble here in Warsaw, where in our lovely offices we have people who want to make career. But what I found positive in that is that whenever somebody, and let's focus on women right now, want to make a career, they have to make a first step. That is easy step to go to any of the organization. And if they are lucky, and I hope when they join our organizations, they are lucky, we are the leaders who can then support them by showing what is possible and killing the stereotypes that we have in our head, because I think the biggest challenge is in our head. So right now it's quite easy for me to sit in this chair and say how easy it is, but it took years for me to become who I am. And it was not easy way, but it was possible because I wanted it very strongly. And second, I had the support. And funny, I didn't have a support from my family because I have very traditional family. When my mother never worked, and for her, the success is to have husband, kids, and be able to cook. I was divorced. I have kids. I have never cooked. So for her, I was a disaster. Yeah, my life was disaster. She said, I'm not going to go for aunt's party because what am I going to talk about? You're just simply at work. But fortunately, there were other people who were supporting me with that. And I could easily put it in my head that she's just not right. And I prefer other career in my life. And I had support from others who helped me to just manage the expectations. And of course, my expectations was to have kids. And I had a daughter and a son. And they were perfectly raised with me being at the office, at work, traveling. And I even asked my daughter, who is right now 22, so she's really grown up, do you have a problem? Did you have a problem with that I was never at your, I don't know, birthday parties with other kids or this mom's day or other? I said, I know, I was proud because you were traveling and you were a different mom than others. So that proved, I have a proof to take to ladies who want to become the leaders that you do not have to sacrifice your own career because there is an expectation from your family. And I think families are the worst, that you have to be here. And also key is to, like you mentioned, for your son, to educate partners and also female partners, that if somebody wants to make a career, let's support, because it's beneficial for all. So I had it, and I was listening to you about son and daughter, and I recently realized, and I apologize my daughter, because I have a son and daughter. She's 22, he's 11, and for me, she was a perfect student. She had always A, and I was never happy because I told her, you have to be perfect. You have to be perfect. Yeah, and she, in a way, she is perfect, yes. But I have a son who I'm happy if he gets D, yes, not E. I'm really happy. And I thought, that's not fair. Yes, and I'm constantly telling you, your sister could get that. You can do it as well. But my initial thought is, at least he made this D. we manage.
We bring our daughters to be perfect and our sons to be adventurous.
I'm very sorry, Mom. Yeah, you are perfect. You are not perfect. Yes, let's put it clear. Yes, so this, I'm also got myself in this gap. Yes, so constant feedback is good, and also being aware about that is key.
Super. So self-awareness and sort
Absolutely.
of keeping a check on us. Joanna, are you seeing, so we're kind of, I think, wildly agree that we need some change, we need more kind of diversity in the boardroom to tackle these changes. Are you seeing commitment of leaders to actually change the culture?
I see declarations,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure I consistently see commitment. And we have, and when we speak diversity, right, the natural association would be female and male, but that also reflects ageism, race, ethnicity, religion, etc. Right? So most of the companies would have in their values diversity and inclusion, right? But perhaps there is fewer who actually achieve that. And we have those young female professionals entering labor market. They want to have a career. They manage despite the obstacles from their families and societies, and then they stop at certain level because they're confused, right? Because they want to raise families and they want to grow professionally, and they can't do both at the same time. Well, actually they can, right? Because coffee does not exclude tea, and you can have a family and a career. But to realize that, they need to look at role models. They need to look at people who actually achieve them, and companies need to enable them to do that, right? So I think the last 18 months has proven that we are able to work remotely perfectly well. And for a number of employers, it's even more cost efficient than having everybody in the office. But it also means that young parents can be professionally active even during these first months of being a parent. But we need to allow them to do that. We need to build structures and culture that would accept though that people have their personal priorities, yet they want to be professionals. And we're not doing that enough. On the other hand, and this is again my experience, female professionals very often claim maternity well before the delivery date, right? So employers are reluctant hiring younger women because they're afraid they will disappear on the extended sick leave, and which oftentimes happen that they do, right? So this is like shooting into your own foot. And that's why the role modeling is so important, right? We know that being going through the struggles of being a young parent, or through the struggles of having a sick family member or whatever, is not easy. We can create a culture where people would feel okay to admit that they struggle, where they would be understood, when they will feel comfortable getting the support for the time they need to overcome the difficult situation, and then resume their career or start accelerating their career. But this is, I believe this is our responsibility to get out of the declaration and actually start doing that.
Yes, and actually from my experience, in most corporates, what happens is that the period when the time when women decide to have children also coincides with them being in those kind of management roles where they're getting both pressures from the teams below them and the leaders from the top. And actually, it's probably the toughest time. It certainly was the toughest time in my career. And paradoxically, the higher up you get in an organization, the easier it gets, because then you're in charge of your own agenda. You can afford to have support for your children. You can choose what school events of your children you attend, etc., etc. So I think that the real crunch is actually helping women get through that really, really tough spot in the middle.
And that's why we should talk about our experience and how we did it, right? And but also about the fact that we did struggle, that there is no perfect scenario. Sometimes it's a crisis situation. Sometimes you just miss a deadline because there is an event at school, and sometimes you miss an event at school because there is a deadline. That's life, right? And to create creating an environment where it's okay to talk about these priorities and discuss these priorities is important. And I hope that we'll get to that.
Thank you, Barbara. So we've said that there are at least declarations from leaders that they want to have more diverse teams, including female leaders. Do you think that the females in the boardroom, is that seen as an opportunity for business, or is it maybe a bit of a threat as well? Because it's difficult to see why we're not making faster progress.
I think that both, that some people see it as an opportunity, and we, of course, we see that as an opportunity, but it looks like not enough women see that top leadership roles as really the good opportunities for them. And that's what we say, we should support them by all sorts of kind of help. So very important is, on top of remote work, as well flexible working hours. This is very important, that that the parent can work whenever he or she has time to do that. It's always, should be as well applied for fathers and for mothers. But as well, what is important is, for example, good mother care, that child's care, that mother can really
Mother care as well.
Mother care as well, to help mother to go through this hectic time. But child care, and just to have these tools, which as well some companies as well, deliver for their employees, not only the state, but as well big companies get kindergartens or or nurseries even for the children, yeah, of the employees. So this is very important, and this is the opportunity, and as well for businesses, yeah. I think it's a must. It's not an opportunity, it's not a threat, it's a must. A threat maybe for some people who are threat to what? To status quo, to the comfort zone, to my stereotypes, to my priorities, to that I feel better if there are only, I don't know, the same IT specialist as I am, and then there will be somebody from human approach, and it was what she or he is talking about. So this is as well, you know, might be perceived as a threat, but I think there is no escape from the businesses, yeah, to be more diverse and to include more and more women into their management teams or leaders, because the companies can't afford to lose such talents, you know, to lose such an educated, well-experienced, and very often highly motivated women as we have. Yeah.
And do you think COVID has helped the cause of female leadership, or has it had the opposite?
I think that, you know, COVID put a lot of pressure on the businesses, you know, to change working style, organizational environment, and the culture of the companies, as well remote work, hybrid work, flexible hours. So a lot of change, which, you know, always the women who want to take these opportunities and as well organizations which want to support these women, yeah, will help both to get more and more you know, talented women to be really on the top of the management and the top of the organization, which we all would like to see more, because it's not changing. You know, in Poland last I think 10 years, there is no more women than, you know, between 16 and 18% in the top positions. So there is something still to be done, yeah, a lot to be done through mentoring, through what we have been talking here. But it's a must, you know, that's less and less employees available for the organizations. The best talent has to go to the company. So we can't afford as a society or businesses to lose really this great, I would even say hundreds of thousands of women, which are not, you know, properly and on using their experience and their education and their talents on a daily basis.
Thank you. So we're sort of talking about both the pull. We do need leaders to pull female talent into the teams, and we also need women to actually push other women and to want to, as you say. And maybe now to Magda, as head of talent, what support do you think female leaders, future female leaders, need to help them, you know, with that sort of push to the boardroom?
Thank you for that question. Actually, my reflections when I was listening to are going to this direction, because from one side, yeah, we have an obligation as organizations to allow for more female, to be more diverse, and to, you know, measure it, and to, you know, put some initiatives, strategies, etc., to actually allow for that diversity. But I would like to stop at something different. Like, what is on our side as female? What is stopping us from raising our hand to be on, you know, on the board or to progress? Because it is there that we are not as confident as male, and there are things that are our own internal barriers. So I would like to, and that's gonna come back to what Anya was talking about, being perfect, and how we feel from the social pressure that we need to do twice as much. And then we try to, because we have still this male style of effective leader. I mean, less, but still like effective leader is male. So we try to, cope with that expectation, social expectations of who we are, and being powerful, decisive, strong, etc. And then sometimes we are taken that there's like a little fake there, and we are taken as we taught you too bossy. And then we always struggle between either we too bossy or we too soft, and we're not enough. And I want to come back to my experience I had last year. I was taking a course online through online platform on Yale School of Management. And that's, by the way, one of the way we support female talent, because that was about women leadership development. And I started this course, and they just position the content, and they say we're going to be talking about emotional intelligence in innovation. And I was like, okay, I'm pretty good on this one. And also I feel like women are pretty good in this area. So why I'm taking a course when we normally think, okay, you need to take a course to, close your gap, to, develop your deficiencies. And then it was such a great trick, because they went through a chain of proof through that content that social intelligence and innovation, that's the skills that, first of all, women normally are better than men or slightly excel. And then these are actually skills for the future that we so much need, because anything is going to be about relationships, connections. Innovation needs, creativity and inclusion. That's actually top skills of the business that are going to need, and we are great at those. So and then another trick was that you actually can be excellent when you already work on your strengths and not on your gaps. But like the best sportsmen, they just practice and practice over and over again what they're great at, and that gets you excellence. When we are going to be excellent in something, and we're going to have this courage to deep dive in our core values, our strengths, who we are, how we want to, be seen, then we're going to be authentic, and we're going to be, our excellence is going to shine. And I think for me, the way I was actually, my style of leading is through authenticity, and then also authenticity of where I'm strong, where I'm maybe not strong, and that's fine, because we're not perfect in anything. So coming back to this perfectionist, I actually, they take me as a silly mother, because I never expect any grades from my children. And I was like, go and study what you're passionate about. Just, put the additional effort in things that you're interested in, because now you're not choosing your job now being 13 years old, because who knows what kind of job is going to exist in 10 years time. Go with your passion. If you go with your passion and your strengths with your core, you're going to be successful and you're going to shine. And I was just like, I had this aha moment when I was watching, what's the name? I was on the concert of Daria Zawiałow lately, and she was like, she's singing great, but she presented herself like, yeah, I'm not really best on stage. I'm just like kind of shy. I don't get this contact with the audience. But she was so like, she was like, I'm great in singing. She had a distance to herself, and she was so authentically sharing that it just came out strong and confident. And I was actually with someone that does not speak Polish, and it was like, oh no, I found her very confident on the stage, because we also need to be confident what we're great at and what we don't have to be great with everything. So for me, that's my answer.
So great answer. So you're saying that actually females, do have those competencies, those talents that businesses need, that there are some barriers that, at times we impose on ourselves, that we sort of need to focus more on our strengths. At the same time, we're not getting enough of the pull from those in power for us or females to be included in those big decisions. Now, do you think we need some sort of instrument like quotas, for instance, for women to actually get to the table?
We need to measure, because if you don't measure, I mean, things that are not measured, they won't get done. So I think we need to measure, but I think we need to be careful with quotas, because pushing too much for quota are going to hinder this intrinsic motivation or this creativity and this grassroots movement that is needed for that diversity and inclusion. Because it was said here by Anya, I think that this is kind of like a cultural shift to bring this value to the organization, and that needs a structural changes. I mean, it's best if you have it at the strategy. It's best if you have initiatives, if you have measurements around it. But then it needs also the bottom-up approach and horizontal. We need to have this inspire female that actually sharing their energy, and they bring that great notion of, it's great to be female, leader as I am. So that's how.
Thank you. We'll come back to that. And let's now look at Poland against the other sort of places, both in Europe and outside. And Mark, it's wonderful to have you here, because you've also got that perspective of having worked in the UK, but also Australia, New Zealand, Asia, very different cultures. How do we in Poland compare to what you've seen elsewhere? And, what are the sort of lessons that we should be learning from others, and maybe what lessons can, our colleagues in the UK, for instance, since we're in the Polish-British Chamber of Commerce, what lessons can others take from what you've observed here?
Right. I'm going to offend somebody here, aren't I? I think probably I'd contextualize that just from a change perspective, assuming we need change, and I think we're in agreement there is benefit in change. Change normally is driven by desire or necessity. And alongside that, there's the consideration of what's possible and the perception of what are the limitations, whether they're real or imagined. So if I think about those various different countries, and I think it also goes back to the discussion around what females believe is possible themselves, alongside what an organization believes is right and possible and should happen, as well as being beneficial. And then the societal, cultural impact of that. And I think globally, the first female prime minister was in Sri Lanka in 1959. I think since then, New Zealand have had 3 female prime ministers. The UK have had 2 female prime ministers. Australia have a number of state government ministers, and there are very prominent female leaders in all of those countries. So look at it through that lens. There doesn't appear to be a glass ceiling. The most senior people leading the country and some of the biggest companies in those countries are females. And everyone acknowledges, in most cases, they've done an amazing job. So, I think from a female perspective, that's possible. Top job in the country, top jobs in the country is possible. From a male perspective, I think there's recognition of the success of those females, the qualities of those females, the quality of the leadership that they brought. So I think that creates a much more open-minded perspective of what can be done. Right? So from a moral perspective, it's the right thing to do, but I can also see in those countries people recognizing what can be done and the benefits that brings to the country and to businesses. So I think that's a really important aspect, both from an individual aspiration, but also from a recognition that there's huge benefit to do that. And there's also a significant drive in those countries, there can always be more, but there has been a significant drive to increase female representation in leadership, senior leadership roles at the boardroom. And I think it's really important that that is measured to demonstrate progress. Quotas is an interesting concept. There's always the risk of unintended consequences for both sexes in that situation. But if I flip to the other side of the equation and look at Japan, so I'd say those countries are ahead of us in regard of embracing the concept of the value of female leadership and supporting it to actually.
So Australia and New Zealand. Would you include UK in that?
To an extent, not as much as Australia and New Zealand, to an extent. Japan are way behind. So in Japan, from a societal perspective, and this is reflected in business, it's a very singular focus, Generally, and this is quite an interesting experience for me. I went to Japan expecting lots of innovation, embracing change, process efficiency, very dynamic. In many ways, it's the opposite. And this comes back to society and culture, which I think is an interesting debate for us in Poland, which I know least about. The traditions there are so steeped in history. This is the way you do things, and there's a real inertia to change, in Japan. And so they have huge productivity challenges as a country. The representation of females at leadership level is virtually non-existent. And from a cultural perspective, there's very little equality. Now, there's a fair bit of rhetoric from the government and various people, but in the time I was there and for a very long time before, very little sign of any change. So it really is an ostrich with its head in the sand, to be honest. So I'd say we're a lot better than Japan,
Good to hear.
and a number of other cases in Asia. But I think we've certainly got some catching up to do in terms of where Australia and New Zealand are right now, and I think to an extent the UK. And a huge aspect to this is not only seeing the opportunity, but it's being prepared to make the change, and not believing there are constraints that stop you.
And what do you see us doing really well here?
From a Poland perspective, well, I think we have some great examples, present company included. And as I said before, in my business, we're a living example of a business that is predominantly run by female senior leaders. So I think we have some great examples that we can point to. And there's always the belief in what's possible before it exists, but if it exists, it's clearly possible. So I think we have that, and I think we need to celebrate that, and I think we need to broadcast that more, a lot more. And I think today is a great start. But I think there needs to be more and more discussion that then very quickly turns into action. And I think the communication, the communication needs to be two-pronged. It's very much about doing the right thing from that diversity, equality, and inclusion perspective, but also the genuine business benefits of having a diverse leadership team. It's by its very definition means it can't be all male, it shouldn't be all male, it shouldn't be predominantly male. But also the fear factor. If we want to transform ourselves into a knowledge economy in a global marketplace, coming back to the earlier point, we need to look at every potential leader that's in the market right now and in the future. So this also comes back to how committed we are to not only enabling female leaders today, but developing female leaders for the future. Because the future of our country and our businesses are the people joining our businesses now. So what are we doing to accelerate that pipeline of talent and broaden that pipeline of talent?
Super. So let me open it up to the wider audience here, to our guests. So what can we do to accelerate the female leadership, the strength of this female leadership? And I suppose, can we afford not to have more of female in leadership, given the state of the world, so to speak? So who would like to go first? Maybe if you could just introduce yourself for our benefit and the benefit of those who are listening, please.
I'm not sure if I should start because I have so many thoughts here, but I would like to share them with you. My name is Fantasia and I work together with Barbara in Finance, but I'm responsible not for Polish market in any aspect. I'm responsible for our international partners. Yeah. So, so many thoughts, as I said. First, it's really interesting that we are still talking about female or male leadership. This is a little bit crazy because this is something which creates kind of a conflict or opposite position between this one or that one. But maybe the much more important thing is the model of leadership we are talking about and which is being promoted in a market, in a country, in our minds, in the culture, in the traditional aspect of talking about the leadership. So if we define it a little bit more thinking about our natural features, I mean the natural features of ladies, of women, maybe the discussion about female leadership won't be really necessary in the future.
So we should be focusing on the right leadership for the moment, and then
what does it mean? Because what also was really interesting for me, you said something like that in this specific time, because of this difficult situation, environment, conflicts, polarization, in general, mess, we should be more focused on women. And it really hits me because this is something we have in our minds. This is something I think that when you want to clean up the mess, you are hiring a woman. And when the mess is done and everything is okay, and this is time for to grow and to create competitiveness and to fight and to win, we are looking for men suddenly. So maybe this way or this direction of talking about the need of having ladies on the top position because there is a mess to be cleaned up is not actually something I would like to see it as it should be.
Can I comment on that?
Yeah.
Because I believe that we're gonna have a constant mess.
Yeah.
As a chance for us, women.
That's a chance for us. Yeah. But what I mean, I would like to see it like this. When there is really something difficult, ladies. Yeah, like during the Second War, no men in factories. The ladies are there, and they are doing really very well. When the men are there, the ladies are again at home. Yeah, caring for kids and for for kitchen and everything.
I think what we want to say here is that in the disruption that we're experiencing and this mess that is probably going to be constant and needs from the organization to transform all the time, I think we're saying we need both. I think we're saying we need diversity as general, and we need this diversity at the end for diversity of perspective and thought. And that's what's for me, that's what's gonna heal the mess more than just female.
Yeah. So we cannot really say that mess, female, everything okay, men. Yeah, it will be. Because there is nothing like the really good time. Yeah. So this is something which was the, let's say, old school way of thinking about the business. Yeah. Good times, it's good old times, and yeah, we can expect the mess all the time. Yeah, and something which is also very important, and especially after COVID, we are talking about leadership related to the top position in a company, like this 3 letters position, CEO, CFO, somebody who's really on the top. But we can elevate this 1% of, because we're not talking about leadership this way, we are talking probably about the bubble of 2% of people in general in Poland, like top managers. But maybe it will be much better to start thinking about female leadership at different levels, because we can be leaders not only in the company, we can be leaders not only as a top people in the company, managing people. There is a lot of different levels of being leaders, and this is maybe the room for encouraging our daughters and the younger generation to be a leaders, not as the leaders who are highly paid, who are making a career in this aspect. So yeah, this kind of leadership, female leadership.
Some more thoughts, yes, please.
Yeah, thank you so much. Very, very interesting discussion. So my name is Natalia Rishitska. I'm coming from Diageo, which is an alcohol company, very traditional and usually male-dominated business. So I'm just hearing a great interest. And let me reflect on a couple of things and then also ask you a question if you may. So first of all, I'm lucky to be in a company which is really progressive. We have our goals, we have our diversity and inclusion targets, One of these are to have the 50% of female leaders in the board, which we are almost there. We have as a company globally just appointed our master blender, which is a very, very traditional, usually male role, which is at the moment done by women. Very, very actually first women in the industry. So yeah, so within my years in Diageo and then also in my previous companies, I've met many amazing female leaders. So I can say that there is actually no difference whether women are better or men are better. It's just a matter of capabilities, willingness, engagement, etc. However, this being said, what I'm seeing, I just wanted to reflect what you have said, right, about the politics and then also the social life, because personally, I do believe that all businesses are already progressing and then inviting more and more female leaders to join their boardrooms, to manage the business, etc. Actually, the word is not only being ruled by the business, right? We have also the second part, which is usually politics, governments, our social partners, etc. And here, frankly speaking, what I can see is absolutely not enough female representation. Right? So, and I can say also watching it from a broader perspective than on Poland, because actually I'm working from Northern Europe, then previously I've worked for many, many markets all over Europe. So sharing it from both Poland, Central Eastern Europe, Western Europe, etc., I still see that actually as a business, when we are going outside to talk to our customers, to talk to politicians, to talk to our stakeholders, usually we do talk to men. Right? And I think that's one of the areas that we as female leaders, we need actually to engage more if we really need to, if we really want to change something. Because let's face it, right? We are, in my opinion, not yet well represented. Yeah. So that's one of the reflection. And then I also wanted to ask you a question. Any practical advice from your organizations, if you may share with us, how actually you're supporting female leaders? Any kind of the watch outs you would like, you would be so kind to share with us?
Super question. Who would like to go first?
I can go.
Please.
I can go. So I'm quite against supporting only women in any case, because it's so unfair. It's so unfair, especially in a place where, at least in my surrounding, there are mainly women and I have less men, but starts to be noticeable, at least by me. But what we do, and I am very much against quotas. Really, I'm so against quotas, you cannot believe, for a reason I will say in a minute. But what we have implemented in this organization is the requirements to have at the resourcing level, at the panel of people who interview, especially women, at least one woman, at least. And within candidates, that there must be always a woman candidate, which is quite problematic from the talent acquisition perspective, because it's additional work, but it gives at least a chance to increase the probability of choosing the best candidate out of men and women. I do not really, I hope we'll never ever have quotas per se, because if done incorrectly, can kill all the hard work that we do right now by promoting incorrect female, not having proper skills, that will kill all the hard work that we have done, that is in a way to promote the proper skills. Yeah, so that's why I'm so much afraid that anybody will implement quotas, because it can be really, if not correctly done, against us. But I think having a right start and having the entry choice for men and female is a good start. And then it's just, for me, the equal treatment and mentoring for those women that we see they have the abilities and willingness, but are afraid to pull them. Because I observe from my mentoring experience that men are so much afraid of thinking about themselves as a right candidate that I do not face from men perspective. And also during interviews, I sense that women are more shy and less self-esteem, and they're sure about their abilities than men. not quoting that rather women ask for less money from the beginning than men. And they have a problem with discussing financial part. That is also to be managed, because then we have a perception of gap. So I would say those two parts is key.
Thank you. Any other points to add to that practical advice?
Yeah, I agree with Anya that we should give the same chances to men and women in the companies. Yeah, that we should not in any way put women in favor. But on the other hand, you know what I do, for example, I just work for the Women's Foundation, yeah, Women's Business Foundation, where we just help women to go through the stages of their their professional careers. But on the other hand, we promote as well partnership with men. So we have men mentors, we have male and female mentors, and you know, this is the case because we have to promote each other. I mean, women and men should promote women, and women should promote as well women and men. Yeah, it should be diversity. We shouldn't go to the extreme that, you know, we in a way not give a fair chance to the men, yeah, in the organization. But I agree as well that there is a lot in us, yeah, in us. We have a lot stereotypes in us, and a lot of issues which we have to work out as a women, mostly cultural, and we discuss it. I'm not going to repeat it again. And I am against quotas as well, because this is, you heard about golden skirts, yeah, syndrome. This was really badly implemented quotas made this syndrome, which is the small group of women took all top positions in France and Germany, or in some of the Scandinavian countries. So they were like, I don't know, group of couple of hundred women who took, I don't know, 600 or 100 positions in the supervisory boards or the boards, yeah? So this is a threat. But you know, working in the foundation, which is quite valuable experience to me, that most people who promote quotas are men on top positions, because men says that if there are no quotas, nothing will change in a short period of time. So, and this is, of course, you know, some people are for quotas, some people are against quotas, but a lot of top Polish leaders on the top positions are saying that nothing will change until, you know, quotas are implemented, and they are taking into consideration their daughters, you know, and the future of their daughters, which are, you know, another 5 years, 10 years, they will be on the market, and there will be the same problems which we experience today.
Well, there is a view in business that we are so focused on KPIs that we do need to have a target. Unless we have a target, nothing happens, as you.
That's an easy way.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
an easy way.
We are
it's an
used
easy
to.
way not to dig into where the root cause is.
Yeah.
I want to comment on what you said at the beginning about being a part of this foundation. Yeah. And I just want to flag that word because I'm not sure it sounds here. It's networking. I think that woman needs this good network of support, and that's how we actually live. Yeah, we always have our friends, and we chit chat, and we talk much more. Probably. Oh, maybe I should not go into that. So we need that social connection, and that's something that we do in UPS. Is apart from anything that happens from the organizational perspective. We do open up for these groups of voluntarily, you know, people that are interested into, you know, creating this bottom-up energy, and that's not only for female, that can be for any minority or even any like an idea, like we want to have a innovation BRG group or something like that. So then they are like completely empowered to set the activities as they wish. So they're doing some training or connection or meeting. And it's like for once they're bringing this great ideas into other people, but at the same time by doing that, they exercise and practicing just the great skills of being empowered, collaborating, trusting people, etc. And I actually created that kind of group a couple of years ago in Poland, and we had such a great time. And even though I was the highest rank, I was never playing the highest rank. I was really allowing people to bring their voice in. And one of the persons says like, this hour we spend a week is just my best hour of the week, because I just do what what I wish to do. So I think, it needs both. It needs some organizational ideas and initiatives, and it needs some bottom-up energy.
Well, networking is an interesting one. Of course, if we look at COVID, what happened during COVID, there was very little networking, at least physically. So that sort of, in a sense, should equalize the chances. From my personal experience, I do remember that one of the most terrifying experiences is to wander into a room full of navy blue suits and actually, finding a group that you can attach yourself and talk to. So having sort of helping women to how to do that well and how to sort of be eased into that rather than thrown in at the deep end, I think is a great thing we should all be thinking about.
And also, I think this remote work we are in now, we need to be deliberate about building connections, because it's just not, you're not passing someone in a cafeteria, you just have to make an effort to network and to build relationships. But at the same time, and I'm always trying to look from positive perspective, for us as a global organization, it just opened up such a amazing opportunity for diversity. We can now have this BRG meeting together with someone from, Brazil and Warsaw, and then, Hong Kong. So that's amazing how we can now learn from each other and share.
That's the positive consequence of technology. Brilliant. Let's bring some other voices from the room. Agnieszka, love to hear your thoughts here.
Thank you, Olga, and absolutely fantastic conversation. I will start by saying that.
Can you introduce yourself just for the benefit? Sorry.
I got called by name and I forgot. Agnieszka Gajewska, I'm BPCC partner and recently global leader for government and public services at PwC. Well, where we know each other from, it's from PwC, like Olga 15 years ago. Olga was already a partner coming from the UK, and I was like newly promoted manager. So we go really a long way back. I will start by saying that after this terrible things that happened in Norway and elsewhere, I bought myself a golden skirt. What can I tell you? It's just like, it was just so I listened to this, I read this, and I said, like, is it really such a huge problem? And I think we discussed here many things. One of them was, what kind of tools we can bring, what we can really do to make these changes quicker, because I think these changes are happening and everyone is aware of this. But are they quick enough? Yes. And I will not disclose the name of the person because I value the privacy of conversations that we had. But exactly the first person who really challenged me on quotas was a man, and this was a man from Australia. And when he asked me about, are you for quotas, I said, no, I'm not. And he said, why not? I said, like, because quotas are wrong, because we will be promoting, not the best qualified people, we will just promote women. And he said, like, you know what? I have 2 daughters, and I know that if we are not going to have quotas, they will never make it to the boardroom. Just like, okay, it's an interesting one. It's an interesting one. And what you, Barbara, said about, males, surprisingly enough, being much more in favor for quotas, and I don't like the name quota. I agree with you, Anna, but you said that if we push it too hard, it's going to probably bring much more harm than good. But I think that the conversation that we need to have with all our leaders is to be brave in challenging ourselves. So are we challenging ourselves on each and every position? Because I think the worst that can happen is that when quotas come at the very, very top, because it is almost like like a funnel. If you don't have enough women at the associate level, if you don't have enough female at the manager level, if you don't have enough female at the partner at the director's level, then you don't have a pool to choose to the CEO level. And I think this is almost like a vicious circle we are right now. But I will give you one example from last couple of years. Probably most of you have observed the conversation that was around choosing commissioners to the Ursula von der Leyen Commission. She was very brave. She said she wants to have minimum 50% of women within her commissioners, and she ended up with having 13 female and 14 male. And it was quite brave. And I was thinking, and it was the first time ever. So normally, if you look at the average, the European Commission, it was less than 30% of female commissioners. The European Commission is a political body, and people who are nominated to be commissioners, they are nominated by the governments. And I think she was brave. She required this. She called us all out on this by saying, actually, in every single country, there must be one woman that is, brave enough, smart enough, good enough to be nominated as a candidate to be in the commission. And right now, she ended up with 13 to 14, so which is, and she's number 28. So we have like the perfect balance. And even though I must tell you, I'm toying with that concept of hard measures like this. I think it was a smart move on her side, because if didn't she do this, most probably we would have exactly as we were always before, so like 30% female, 70 or 80% male. I think it's a smart move. So this is the first thing about, because we spent quite a lot of time on this. I think this comment Magda made about the relationships and building these connections, I think they are absolutely great. This is a thing where collectively we need to be better. And I think it is also on us, female leaders, to be better on this. And the last one about this, it was so many times during your conversation about we raise our daughters to be perfect and our boys to be adventurous, and probably all of you read this book Brave Not Perfect, and I think it is almost like the root cause of problems. When you look at that, where we are today and the world that we have right now, what is the chance of a person who is brought up and hardwired to be perfect? The world is changing so quickly that if we don't really encourage and push our people, male and female, but I think female are hardwired to be perfect. So if you don't push them, if you don't really tell them actually it's absolutely fine to be adventurous, to experiment and to fail, and not to be afraid of a failure, I think women are per definition, and it's not about the quotas. Because it's, I think by definition, we are giving them much worse chances. So I think how I experience it from many amazing leaders. One of them is sitting on the panel today, who pushed me, and it was great thing. So right now, what we can do as leaders, female and male, is to push our female leaders, younger ones, the ones who need this exposure to the market, to the society, to really do things that maybe they don't feel that comfortable about, and they are afraid of failing, saying that actually, what? Fail is part of the success. Failure is part of the success. So you need to internalize it and to make it part of your story, your leadership story.
And we're almost having to kind of help women unlearn that perfectionism, because it's so deeply ingrained into us. And it's also, we also have to watch out for people saying, well, she doesn't want to be a leader. I've asked and no women put up their hands. I think we need to be working on the environment. Why do we have an environment where we have 50-50 women male ratio and no woman wants to put up the hand to have a go at a difficult job? Yes. So I think your message is, let's challenge ourselves, let's push ourselves. Yeah, let's not just give ourselves excuses. Super. Okay, who else? Any questions that you'd like to discuss, debate?
I have a question. How did the Polish company, because we are coming from international companies and working for international one, PSI with works in the UK, and I don't feel any limitations for women, for any races. But what with Polish companies? Because I have husband in Polish company, and there's a huge problem there. So,
And of course, then we have to differentiate Polish companies, privately owned, state-owned, etc., etc.
acting internationally, but
Yeah.
it works in Poland, and this is a completely different story, I think.
And I will put that question to the panel, but maybe just your thoughts on how we.
I think that building this awareness around Polish leaders in such companies will be very hard, and no idea how to target them and how to build this awareness, how to maybe spread this somehow. But we are the leaders in international companies. We have completely different companies culture.
Yes.
Already implement with sustainability matters, with inclusion, diversity matters, but they have no idea about it.
And it's actually those companies that we're expecting to make that shift.
Absolutely.
From, you know, cost efficient and good value for money to creative and innovative. So let's just turn to the panel. So what are your thoughts? How do we, you know, we're in a privileged position because we've got background with, you know, we've got the international kind of approaches behind us that helped us get to where we are.
You know, I can share my experience because
Please.
I worked 9 years for Polish Mint, Mennica Polska. I was in the board. I was a financial director, but as well the board member. And this is the group which is really controlled by one of the Polish top investors, Mr. Zbigniew Jakubas. And you know, this is just him to decide to put me on the board. And since me, there is always a woman, at least one woman in the board, because I think he saw the advantages of having more diverse board. But there was for a long time no women in the supervisory board where he was in. So there were men. But you know, I think this is like by raising the belief in the investors, and Polish investors, that the same as in the big corporates, by the example, that why corporates want to have diversity and want women, because this is beneficial, it is better in the results and so on and so on. So this is, I think, the way how probably the best way to explain to the owners, of the Polish companies, that women can bring additional value, because women are by definition, and maybe this is another stereotype, less risky in making decisions than men. So this is not maybe to come to the mess, because Marta was talking about when the mess, there are women, when there is success is a man, So this is as well the reason why to put the woman, because woman is always more conscious and less willing to take risky decisions in investment and going strategically more wild. I don't know how to say that, but this was the reason why I was appointed. And of course, I always, as a CFO as well, I'm more prudent, let's put it this way, than the people from sales, marketing, or business development, or strategic, because financial person is always challenging the figures, are always challenging the business assumptions, business models, business plans, and so on and so on. So I was always perceived as a person to look really into this and minimize the risk. So maybe this is the the answer. But the top people who decide who is in the board has to believe that women will bring benefits to the organization. Otherwise, there will be men.
So we have to do this awareness.
Absolutely, and stockholders, yeah, and decision makers, and the top people. And if you listen from time to time, Mr. Jakubas is giving the interviews. He says that he always think women and all his managers get the success to share part in the success of his businesses and his group. So this, you have to have this this want to change, want to put.
I think there is perhaps one more element, and we were talking about it at the very beginning, right? So the change comes as a result of necessity or desire. I think it was you saying. So I think even though some of the Polish originated companies may be hesitant to accepting more women into leadership positions, they will soon dry out of talent and they will have to change, right? Because there is only X number of people, the society is aging, there is less people entering labor market, the new generation is not so inclined to be working their ass off for 60 hours a week. And suddenly there won't be enough male candidates to play in this big boys club. So the sooner they realize that, the more successful they will be. So I would say that this change is coming inevitably. It's just a matter of time, right? So, but also as women in leadership positions, we need to choose carefully, right? Would I want to work for someone who doesn't appreciate diversity? Perhaps not. So it's not my loss, but that I'm confident that this will come.
Any other thoughts on that? I mean, the thought that springs to my mind is that, bringing women on boards is not enough. I mean, that's one of many steps that needs to take place. I mean, it's a great step in the right direction, but I think there's all these other things like the culture of collaboration, of mutual respect, listening to each other and working together actually to create that value is also really, really important and actually incredibly difficult. In a sense, you could say hiring a woman and putting her on a board, tick. Yeah. But to get the value out of, as Barbara was saying, to actually turn that into a greater value for the business, it's much more of a challenge. It's a lot easier to manage, to lead a team of people who all think the same. I mean, gosh, the board meetings are really quick. Decisions are taken immediately. And you hear those people say, well, it's really easy because we all think the same, we're all fully aligned. Now, if people say that, what's happening. It's groupthink. Those guys or ladies, because we've also got businesses where we've only got female leadership. It's really hard to come up with something new and innovative when you've got that groupthink in place. Right, more questions, more thoughts.
Anya?
Oh, sorry, yeah.
I am still reflecting on your question about the Polish companies, but it may be as well international companies have a problem with diversity. Yes, and it will be a little bit aligned to Asha. Yes, I think the key is to educate both women and men, but we discussed about women that they have one life, they have one career, and they have their own growth. And it's good that they try within the organization and educate themselves and become experts and become really good. If they cannot get through because they know the culture doesn't support them, they should leave and come to the organizations like ours. Support. But there's a certain limit that you can do. And in the end, you should take care about yourself and drive your career. If not here, there. yes, and be successful. And as you mentioned, in the end, there's a limit when you can be unsuccessful, and there's a limit where people need to wake up and see that the value of the organization is dropping, production is dropping. There are many compliance on the other issues that may come up. So there will be wake up call. Pity, too late, but it's not the problem. Yeah. So let's be a little bit selfish. Let's be a little bit selfish and think about yourself. And if you're sure you're good, just fight for yourself and do not wait. Yes. Of course, it's easy to say in the big cities when there is a choice. But I think right now people have a choice. So if you really, really want, you will make a difference. If not here, then there when you're welcomed. Yeah. So once I worked in the organization that absolutely didn't support the diversity, and I just left. Yes. I'm not, I'm not going to fight forever. Yes. And I was successful somewhere else. So it's just being a little bit selfish. It helps.
But once you get there, extend a helping hand to a younger leader around
Yes.
you.
You know how is it to be on this other side, and it's a good lesson for life.
But it's always good to have a, because it's called sponsor, yeah, but within the business, of course, yeah, somebody mentor. But this is the professional experience to have a sponsor within the organization who will drag you as well, help you to promote. As always, it is always good to have somebody, you can share your thoughts, your doubts, because as higher you are, more lonely you are as well. You have less colleagues to support you, yeah, less friends you have. This is one of the challenges, I think, which may make young managers not to want to become so high in the positions. That's what we in the foundation, a lot of managers are saying in the middle positions, that they don't want to go for the higher positions because of the loneliness, because of lack of support, lack of this ability to share the problems with somebody who is willingness to help, if you know what I mean, not to use it against you.
I just want to comment on that because we've had a couple of programs like mentorship or sponsorship, and then we've been matching. It was not only really for female, but I think if looking at the young female talents and then matched with top executives, and they were male there as well, it's reciprocal exchange.
Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
then at the end, it's like you as a male at the top level, you're building this through these meetings and so close contact, you're building this connection, and you learn about the qualities and like a really great values of this young female leader. So it's like really reciprocal and reverse
mentoring.
Yeah.
So I love that.
Reverse
They were
mentoring.
really great.
Yeah, it is reverse mentoring.
Yeah.
Mentoring odwrócony, and we have 20 couples in the foundation in our mentoring program of this reverse mentoring, and it works great. For
For
example,
me, however you call it, it's always reversed, because if you really focus on learning,
yeah,
always
Both ways.
both ways, and
Yeah.
change. Yeah. So you benefit from each other. Yeah, and it is very good because for example, I had 7 mentees in my let's say experience, and I had 2 men mentees, and it was really a different experience than having a female. Completely different approach to life, different approach to career. A lot what we just discussed here, yeah, different approach to their perception, self-perception, self-esteem, and so on, and different from women.
That gets me to a question can I ask a question to Mark actually? Because I was reflecting on the report that you shared, and if I understood it correctly, it's like that male leaders more often have diverse teams from female and male, where female leaders more often have like female teams. Where's the reason for that?
The reason.
Yeah.
Crikey, that's the data. That's the reality. The reason. That's a hypothesis. I couldn't tell you what the reason is. I don't know what the reason is. No,
Are we
I'd be
feeling more
guessing.
comfortable as female to collaborate with female? That's maybe a question to everybody. I really was like reflecting over that.
I
Why
think
we do that?
I think it's natural tendency to feel at ease among people similar to you, right? Because so I think that might be the stereotype. In my experience, it's more the more diverse team, the more energetic it is, right? But there is this tendency to be surrounded by people who are like.
Yeah, but then we would say, okay, male might do it more because there are more of them, and then it's the other way around.
No, but I was thinking from a women perspective, why would they want to be surrounded by women, etc. But
also share actually, which have me thinking about my different experiences from other countries. So I do remember places, because still, of course, we are in a way complaining about the Polish environment. However, this being said, we are not really in a worse, how to say, situation. And I do remember.
Okay, give me hope.
And I do remember my old case when I was working with Ukrainians, for instance, and they told me like, and initially I didn't recognize why there are so much, how to say, something clearly was not working, right, in our collaboration, etc. I didn't recognize at the very beginning what it was. And then they said, like, in our country, it's completely unusual for women to have a managerial position and then to lead a group of men. This is something strange, and we need to have some time just to adjust to that situation because it's very unusual. So just wanted to say is that apparently this is also very much linked to the given culture and to the given country, actually, how people are brought. That's why actually what worries me a lot nowadays in Poland is that although we have been in this course of as a country, right, to progress, to follow all of the values of diversity and inclusion, etc. Unfortunately, from the last years, it has changed, and I can see it because I also have a young, very small, actually, son. I'm raising. He's at the beginning of his primary school, and then I just see probably same like many of you, his program, and I see books, and I see how kids are being grown at the moment. And this actually has changed, which is really worrying because nowadays this kind of how to say the division between girls and boys, the future professions of boys and future professions of girls, which are being outlined in books for children. Now they started to, and that's why I mentioned from the very beginning that if we really would like, in my opinion, to start changing the world for better, then absolutely, and speaking also for myself, we will need to be much more engaged in the social lives, also not only in our professional lives.
I think that's a really interesting point. And so if I look at my business, so we have nearly 400 people. Our gender diversity is very good, I would suggest. Our ethnic diversity is not. So we have 10% who are not Polish, Ukrainians, Belarusians, and me. That's it. But is that the business, or is that a reflection of the society? Right? And relatively speaking, there's always someone that's worse than us. So we can make ourselves feel better always. But I think, there's stuff we can do in our business. There's absolutely practical things we can do, whether it's unconscious bias training on who we bring in, whether it's blind CVs, transparent contracts to promote, remuneration, to provide a level platform. That's all within our business world. But our business world sits within a universe. And so trying to elegantly make a potentially controversial point, if I think globally, if I go back to my earlier example, in the UK, there are many examples of senior government ministers and leaders of business who come from different ethnic backgrounds. If I go back to New Zealand, the current Prime Minister is a female. If I go to Australia, the CEO of Qantas, one of the biggest companies in Australia, is an openly gay male. That would suggest, while no way perfect, they are societies that are more open to diversity in whatever shape or form that is. And therefore, the environment for businesses to drive change and transformation is more supported, I would suggest. So there are always things we can and should focus on within our business, but there is always a bigger challenge outside, I would agree.
You make a great point, Mark, because we have to remember that diversity and inclusion is not just about gender. It is about bringing different points of views to the table, and it is difficult to find people who've got different cultural backgrounds to bring to the table. But it's not impossible to find them if we truly want to be innovative and creative. If we want to be taking our businesses that way, we need to bring into the room people who represent the global customer base. We shouldn't be creating businesses just for Poland if we want to earn that tick. In fact, big customer base sits on the Asian continent. So we need to think about how we're going to be sort of doing all of that. And I think the topic of education, we've kind of skirted around it. I think that's a huge topic. Maybe we put that to BPCC, that maybe at some stage we could actually get together and discuss that. I'm conscious of time, and I just want to check, are there any other thoughts, comments from the floor? Anybody wants to say anything?
Just one question. I would like to ask men. Are you feeling anyhow uncomfortable while you're managed by women?
Am I feeling uncomfortable to be managed by a woman?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not currently, but I have been. My previous boss was a woman, and 2 bosses ago was a woman. To be honest, I never thought about it. It didn't change what I did. It didn't change how I felt. I got different things from different bosses and leaders. It just so happens that one of my best bosses was a female, but I've also got good stuff from men and female. So to me, it didn't make a difference.
That's very positive for me.
So let me just slowly bring it to a close. So I'd like to ask the panelists to each sort of make a final statement in one sentence, if you may. What are the sort of key takeaways that you're taking home with you, or you'd like to leave the audience with? Who should I start with? Maybe Barbara. Can I start?
I would like only to say in one sentence that more women to the top leaders position is a must and opportunity, and has to change quickly as possible.
Thank you. Mark.
I think there's a real benefit to change, and I think there's a real need to change for Poland, whether we're competing for inward investment or for businesses in Poland competing for scarce talent. And I'd leave with a phrase. I'm going to misquote a phrase of someone who's much smarter than me, which is it's not the strongest of the species that survive or the most intelligent, it's those most adaptive to change. So we need to get on board and embrace change and do it quickly.
Thank you.
So after this discussion that very quickly ran, and this is 2 hours when we're discussing, it just went like that. I'm very much aware about our role as role models to promote the leaders and to pull as many potential new leaders, women leaders, as we can, just from the talent pool that we have.
So it resonates with me that how we bring up the kids will actually dictate what the future for them will be, right? And I'm very lucky because I don't clean at all, right? My husband does it all. And I never thought I should, but that has given me the freedom to pursue my goals, objectives, and ambitions. So the service we can do to the society is to bring up our kids this way. Thanks.
And I'm just gonna repeat what I said probably previously, and that's like a call to women, like get deep dive inside yourself, find your core values, build a strength on it, get it to excellence, you're going to shine, and have the courage to be imperfect.
Brilliant. And I will add, in my view, we cannot afford not to have the right female representation in the boardroom table to deal with the challenges of today. So with this, I'd like to thank the panelists. I'd like to thank Elżbieta for a wonderful introduction and BPCC for organizing our discussion today. Thank you very much. Thank you.